there have been many giving thanks all over Israel and the world as more hostages have been continued to be released.
One of the hostages' families was one of the families we represent.
This is the Brodutch family, and it was a mother and her 3 children, and the father did not get kidnapped. Even though he was at the kibbutz, he was defending it.
This is why you don't give up until you know the status of every single hostage that was taken, whether they are now alive or dead. You don't give up until you know that, because you can reunite an entire family.
There's nothing like the focus that is brought by meeting and spending time with the families of loved ones who are held hostage. And there's nothing like the joy we witnessed in these past couple of days to see these young children reunited with their families, and to see all the joy that comes alongside the incredible pain that has been experienced by these families for the last 6 weeks now. And so we should all be heartened and encouraged by that, and it should reinforce our resolve to give Israel the capacity it needs to continue to do the necessary to get every one of them home.
The worst that we thought could happen is that these people were all killed.
Correct.
Were all executed, or that Hamas was so disorganized that they didn't even know where these people were. Families could have been totally separated. The fact that, again, Hamas knew, even as evil as they are, that this was important to any kind of future they have, and obviously they knew that, as evil as they are, that they've kept some of these families intact. And I just want to say, I don't think that if we didn't do this work, Hamas would not be sending these families back.
The call we were on this morning, which was with Israelis, we do this call every morning. It's a secured call. And it was clear that 1.5 weeks ago, we met with the leadership of Qatar's ambassador to the United States, which is their unplanned. This came from a series of meetings we had with Congress that resulted in a meeting with a Democratic congressman and the Qatari ambassador. And I didn't realize I did this, although I was reminded of this today, and this is going to shock a lot of our audience. Not really. But one of the Israeli lawyers on the phone said, what was significant about that meeting was that Jay really pounded the table to get this thing moving and to get a list of the hostages. And literally a week and a half later, here we are with a significant. So the issue now for us that we're facing is there's a delegation, it's probably the last delegation for a while, going over to Brussels, to the European Union. And if that meeting takes place with the EU, then the thought was today, can Jay and team, and not just Jay, do what I did in Washington, which is basically pound the table and say, hey, we're the Americans. And it does make a difference. And I'm going to say this because it's true, that we represented a former president, and a former president may be president again. We were talking about with our Israeli colleagues, that made a big difference. None of this would have happened in Washington without them. None of this would be happening in Europe without our ACLJ team working with our team here. The way to get this meeting that they want to have in Qatar is actually going through the U.S. Embassy in Qatar and saying, I met with Sekulow, I met with these guys, then the gals, and meet with them. And that's to the ambassador from Qatar to the European Union. Yeah. So they are even working with Congressman Landman's office, the Democratic congressman we worked with, to facilitate that meeting. That would be a very significant meeting if that happens. There is the tie-in between our meeting, the ongoing negotiations with Qatar, and the result here, it speaks for itself. Yes. It's the most complicated. Listen, these are the most complicated hostage. We've done a lot. Everybody in this studio here has done hostage negotiations. I will tell you, this is, in my view, I get Cece's in your opinion, but my view, this is the toughest we've done.
Well, it's tough because you have Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, and they never honor their words at all. And so it gets back into the situation of where you have to have a heavy hand, where you have to push them and force them to do the right thing.
I did not think I banged the table.
So,
did I bang the table?
Even if you don't physically bang the table, I think sometimes you can
made it clear.
That's right. You make it very clear that they need to release. The Hamas needs to do what's right and release these hostages.
It wasn't an outlandish demand. It was.
No, but
it was not saying
this was the nephew of the emir.
Yes, he is an Al-Thani. He's a sheikh.
Yeah,
and he is the ambassador to Washington D.C. And what we said in that meeting with the congressman who was there was the first thing these family members, all they want to know is, are their family members there? What is their status? Are they dead or alive? Yeah, we're not asking for them to be released right now. And are they dead or are they alive? Can you get, because you're telling everybody, you're talking a big game cutter. Can you get that information from Hamas? And you know what? Within a week and a half,
they did.
People started getting released.
Yeah, we don't have all the answers yet.
We don't have all the answers yet. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be more sad stories.
Yeah, I think we better prepare ourselves for
because,
sad
like
stories.
you said, the number of living hostages is probably not as high as it was originally reported.
Well, it was originally 256, then they dropped it to 243, then they dropped it to 238. They're saying now they can't get all of them. Some of them are Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Do you remember, Jordan, walking out of the meeting with the Qatari charge d'affaires said to you and me about the negotiation with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad? They have no negotiating power with them whatsoever. So the question will be...
I won't say the word he used to describe them because I don't want to hurt his abilities, but he used a very strong word to describe dealing with them.
But our diplomatic skills were used well, and the Israeli teams were used well, too. But this is probably the last major delegation from Israel going over. Frankly, they want to stay close to home because of the releases that are coming.
And you can understand that. But unique, I think that all the work we've done overseas in the Middle East, not just in Israel, but I think of all the times in Qatar, that it wasn't unique. It wasn't like our first time dealing with Qataris. And on this scale, it was a much bigger scale because of much more hostages. But we've been there. We've flown to Doha to meet with their foreign minister to get people out of prison and to help get there and ask for their help. So it wasn't new for us and for the ACLJ. So it made sense that if we needed to take it to the next level, we knew how to do it, even if it was years later. So you've got extended ceasefire. This should include 10 more today, 10 or 11 today, plus an additional 10 or 11 for Tuesday and Wednesday.
In the next 48 hours, we could see another 30 hostages
10
released.
to 30, yeah, somewhere between 20 to 30.
At that point, the question is, are they having to release males, not just women and children?
The Red Cross needs to be able to go in and visit the remaining hostages, identify who they are, just like you said, Jordan. That's what the request to Qatar was. Some of these family members just want to know if their family members are alive, are they dead, where they are. So the Red Cross should be... That, I think, is the next step, is they need to be allowed to go in and identify them.
Any adult males been released?
One, the Russian.
And
the Thai. A couple of the Thais.
Yes, that's
the internationals.
But any Israelis?
No, not yet.
And so that's would be a very big next step.
One U.S. person was Abigail, the 4-year-old, who, by the way, great aunt, was in our delegation meeting with your friend, Congressman Jared Moskowitz.
She was there, yeah.
So, I mean, we've had the direct impact on this is for real. Now, the next phase of this, which gets complicated, is going to be the EU phase. Frankly, we were going, then we were just going to send our ACLJ team. Then this morning, things changed a little bit. It may be a shorter trip.
To get 2-day extension.
So now they've got a 2-day extension. How does that play into all of this? But this is probably the end of the family delegations for a while. Mostly, these families want to get home in case their families are released. So we've got to shorten things up. And then we're going to start working on global leaders. Yeah. That's going to be a major project that I'm working with Danny Ayalon on and Rami Levy, who we've worked with for many, many years. The former president of Bulgaria is very pro-Israel. He's going to be involved in this. He is heading Wednesday to, I believe, China in Hong Kong for a meeting with 100 former heads of state. We may end up representing Jordan and Cece, the 100 heads of state, former heads of state, in proceedings at the ICC, because here's what that does. That tells the ICC, here's what 100 former presidents and prime ministers would have done if they were in the exact same situation as Israel. They can't just blow that off.